Alrighty guys, what is up? Welcome to a new series and a new episode for The Farmer Was Replaced with Lone Debater 7. And today we're going to be taking a look at the game The Farmer is Replaced, in case it wasn't obvious to you. Basically this game is an idle automation game. It's a farming game. You plant crops, you harvest them, you're a little droney boy with a cowboy hat, and you've got a flying piggy bank that you throw your crops and such into. Kind of interesting concept, right? But the biggest thing that makes this different from other, like farming, automation, idle games that you've maybe come across in the past is it's actually utilizing Python programming in order to generate all of the automation. So you actually have to write your own programs. And I thought that was pretty cool because I program all the time. I know how to program in a lot of languages, so it's actually been quite fun. I wasn't sure if I'd like it or not when I first got it, but it wasn't too bad on Steam if you want to check it out. So I thought, let me give it a whirl, and it was quite fun. I played quite a ways through on my own before deciding to make a video about it. I didn't fully complete the tech tree, but I got most of it done. But we're going to start from scratch. None of the unlocks, none of the upgrades, and I'm going to kind of walk you through how to create the programs. If you just play the game has a pretty good built-in tutorial. We'll hit play and kind of just take a look. This is what you get. You get a terminal here, main, meaning this is like your main function, your main call, your main program, right? So you also get a tutorial, getting started. This window contains information about everything. You can move windows around by dragging and dropping the gray part. Cool. Start programming, go to first programming, text editor, blah, blah, blah. It's going to give you basically a little tutorial, but that's what I'm here for, so don't worry about it. The things that are important from this, text editor is what they're calling this. You can make more of these by clicking this plus, creates a new window, then you get another one, rename it, double click, and call it whatever you want. You can delete them, but it will delete it permanently. You can copy and paste across these, and once you unlock it, each of these windows can actually contain their own functions and variables, and you can call them specifically. And it's pretty cool because then you can compartmentalize your program. If you're new to programming, that maybe doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but when we get there, I'll show you and kind of talk about it. But first things first, we've got two commands. We've got harvest and we've got do a flip. What we're going to do here, we've got this nice wheat or hay, I believe is what the game calls it, or grass, one of those three, or all of those three, which you'll come to see in a minute. But we're going to go ahead and harvest, and it's a function, so we have to call it. If you're new to programming, there's this concept of built-in functions. You can call a function that's built in by typing out the name of the function, then putting parentheses, both an open and a close at the end. That's going to call the function. We can unlock defining our own user functions later. When we get that, we'll talk about it more. But we can also call any function in the game with this kind of syntax is what this is called. Adding these parentheses is syntax. Like we know we want to harvest, so we're going to call harvest, right? That makes sense. Why do I need these parentheses? This is just saying that when we call harvest, we're just going to run that program. We don't need to give it anything. We don't expect to get anything from it. It's just going to run the program. And that's it. So what we're going to do, if I hit this green button here, it's going to start or stop the execution of the code. I can also do it one step at a time, which is going to name of the function, execute, and that's it. We don't have loops, so that's one execution of the code. If I click this one, it'll just do it a little bit faster. It's going to harvest. Fantastic. Look at this. If you look up here, we've got a total of 6 wheat. I'll go ahead and move these windows a little bit. You can zoom out and in with the scroll wheel. You cannot resize these windows manually. If you type out a bunch of text, like if I hold down space and go out super wide, it'll make it super wide. And if I add a bunch of rows underneath, it'll make it longer, but I can't actually resize it the way I want. I can minimize it, which just makes it a bar. I just kind of want to show you that stuff. It's good to be aware of. But basically, we're just calling harvest. What I could do here, if I don't want to push the button every single time I want to wheat, I could highlight all of this, hold the control key, press the C key, click underneath it, control key held down, press the B key, and it will paste it. So we've copied harvest, and now we're going to paste it. And I think we will do, sure, that many. And it's going to go ahead and call harvest that many times. Looks like it was 9. So we called it 9 times. We'll call it another 9. We should end with 27 hay. That's the resource up here. We'll do it again. Doesn't matter. This guy will run in the background. I just want to gather up a little bit of this hay because we need this in order to unlock stuff, which is what we're going to look at next, because this is pretty basic, pretty boring. We can do a lot cooler stuff. This is like beginner programming. You can call functions like this. There's also do a flip. We can take a look at that if you want. I highlighted all of that and press Control X to cut it, which removes it from the window, but I can paste it back in a minute so I can show you do a flip. Now, when you start typing stuff, you'll get this little list. You can use your arrow keys on your keyboard to kind of scroll through this. And once you pick something, like if I want to do a flip, if you press the tab key, it will complete that statement. Then you just have to add the proper syntax to finish the call. This is what do a flip does. It flips your drone. It's pretty cool. It's kind of like a way to pause in the beginning is more or less what that's used for. But I want my harvest back. We're going to go ahead and run that. And we're going to take a look at what we can do in the tech tree. So this is not scrollable. It doesn't zoom, but it does. You can like click and scroll. You can use your mouse wheel to scroll up and down it. But it's reasonably sized. I mean, it doesn't take too long to unlock this depending on how good you are at programming. But yeah, anyway, the first thing is loops. Unlocks a simple while loop. That sounds awesome. Every time you unlock something, it's going to take you back out to the screen and give, if it's something new, that is, it will take you back out to the screen and give you the tutorial window for it. So while loop, unlocked while loop, the value is true and false. While condition, colon, loop body. This is the syntax. That's what they're showing you. Every time you unlock some new programming ability, they're going to give you the syntax. Don't worry about creating infinite loops. The delays in the execution prevent that from freezing. So this is helpful. This makes it so you don't have to throw in like an exit condition and stuff like that. You can just, if it doesn't work, it will just sit there, but it won't break the game. Your program won't work, maybe, but it won't break your game. Anyway, for beginners, it's going to kind of talk about this. Look, we've got all these harvests in a row. Oh, look at that. We did that. You could use a while loop to do this instead. So what I could do, instead of having all of these harvests, right, and just to show you how these windows work, we're going to go ahead and put this over here. We're going to go while harvest. Sure. Why not? I don't know if I'm going to keep this long term, but just to show the principle. So the way you do this, you're going to type while, right? And you can use the same concept. If I go W, while tab, it'll fill that in for me. So while true, we're going to harvest. Boom, boom, like that. Now look at this. Something to note. Where you call the while loop, all of this is on like one line here, right? It's at the starting indentation length. Once you put the colon, which finishes calling this, basically while is a call. Whatever comes after it is going to be the condition that is trying to look for true or false. Those are the only things it can be. Or 0 or 1. It's a Boolean value. If you're familiar with data types, no worries. Basically, that just means it's either true or false, 0 or 1. Right? So that goes there. But you can have other things that can evaluate to true or false or 0 or 1 being after the while, and that will still work. If I put while 1, for example, this should also work. But I don't want to do that. I like while true. If I'm going to do it like this, if I'm using a variable, I'll use a variable, but we'll talk about that later. If I put in while true harvest, this is what happens. We'll go ahead and close this one, kind of move it out of the way, expand it over there. Cool. While true, we're going to harvest. And basically, this guy is just going to continually harvest every time the wheat grows. Cool. You can always come out and get access to any of the tutorials you've unlocked by clicking this button, right? And available functions becomes helpful once you've unlocked more stuff because you can kind of refer to the syntax and stuff like that. Okay. We could increase our yield of grass, which is hay. Okay, so we could do that. It's 100 hay to unlock that. Could increase the speed of our drone for 20. That's actually not too expensive. Looks like this expands the tree. This just increases our yield. I think we'll do the yield upgrade once. It goes up to 300 to go to from 200% to 300%. So that's fine. Now we're getting 2 every time it harvests instead of 1. That's what this means. If we take this up, we should be getting 3 instead of 1. It's either 3 or 4. I don't know. I don't know if this is like a straight molt like that. Anyway, we're going to increase our speed, and it's going to break our program, right? He's harvesting, but the wheat never grows. We're no longer collecting hay. This program no longer works, right? And this talks about when you get speed, you unlock if branches. If then, if else. So it's not really if then, it's if, elif, else are the calls for these. Basically, you can set up conditions for when you want parts of your program to work. So an example, if you could harvest is something we could do. Elif is basically if I have 2 conditions I want to check. So if can harvest, do this. If can't harvest, do this instead. We would use an elif instead of an if for the second thing we want to check. Then we also have else, which if you have your conditions, generally it's good to have an else. Basically what that's going to do is it's going to specify if it's neither of these conditions or any of the conditions, you can have as many elifs as you want off of a single if, not a big deal. You throw in else, and it's going to do whatever comes after that instead if none of the conditions are met, right? So this is telling you how to write this code, but I'm going to show you how to write this code instead because it's a little more fun. So I'm going to delete this. I don't want this. I don't really want the main. Oh, it won't let me delete that because it's my last window. So I'm going to pull this up. I guess we can keep this, but we're going to delete that out. And this is going to be to harvest like our general harvest function. Now, we don't have functions yet, so I can't set it up like that, but I can write it as if it's a function. Meaning, eventually I'm going to call this program in other programs, but to start off with, it's just going to be to harvest grass. So, while true, if we can harvest, boom. This is another function, right? We can call this, basically it's going to check the crop underneath the drone. If you can harvest it, it's going to return true. Otherwise, it's going to return false. So if can harvest is true, then what I want to have happen is I want to harvest. Boom, pretty easy. Else, if we can't harvest, do a flip. Sure, that's a pause. There is a actual like break command that you can use if you're familiar with programming. That's kind of like a pause as well. It's a little bit faster than do a flip, just because this has an operation time because you're calling a function. Not a big deal. This will work for what we're trying to do. This is basically our harvest function, is what this is ultimately going to be. So, turn that on. See, he could harvest. He harvested. He couldn't harvest the second time, so he did a flip, right? So, we're slowed down on how much hay we get, but we're doing a little better. Now, to go up, we need 300 grass. Ooh, we need 10 logs is what it looks like to go up on speed. To expand our farm, we need 30 hay to unlock planting. That could be interesting. That's 50. So we can actually do both of these. Let's go ahead and expand. We'll talk about movement in just a moment. We'll also get plant. And is there anything else we want to unlock? I can't quite get senses. We'll get that in a moment. We can take a look at what we've got unlocked. So movement. Now with the farm expanded, we actually have 3 whole tiles. That's pretty cool, right? You can move your drone across your farm, and you can actually increase the size up to a 10 by 10. So 10 across, 10 tall. square. That's the biggest the farm will get, as far as I'm aware. So you can grow it quite large, but if you want to move around, you actually need to write code to tell your drone to move. So we unlocked the move commands by expanding our farm bigger than a tile because now we need to move. So this is pretty basic. You have like move north, move east, south, west. So north is up, south is down, east is right, west is left. Hope that makes sense. We'll keep running this while I'm talking. So I'm going to define this as MC for move conditional, because that's what I'm ultimately going to call the function. I can't do that yet, and that's okay. So basically, what I'm going to do is, we don't have senses yet. I really want senses before I make my move conditional, so we'll wait. We only need one more harvest. There we go. We'll get senses just because what this does allows us to get our X and Y position. It gives us number of items. It gives us, we can analyze the ground to see what's planted and what kind of ground it is. So it just unlocks more things we can check or return potentially in order to make a more robust program that does more stuff. So we got senses. We also got plants. We can, plant things. This is just like weeds growing. It's hay, in air quotes, but they're weeds, right? They grow. You don't have to plant them, and you don't have to water them or do anything. Yeah, they're weeds. Anyway, we've got entities.bush, plant, parentheses, entities.bush, we'll plant a bush. And we can harvest this. I'm assuming that this is going to give us wood. Actually, I'm not assuming. I know that it's going to give us wood. So we need to plant some bushes and harvest them. We can also call clear to reset the farm to all grass and reset our drone position. So let's go ahead and stop our harvest for a moment. And let's pull over our main for a moment. And let's just show off the move. So if we go move and I type in north, he's going to move one tile up. If I do it again, another tile up. If you go to the edge of the world, it will cycle you back to the other side. So if you go off the top, you come back through the bottom. If you go off the left, you come back on the right. If you go off the right, you come back on the left. Hopefully that makes sense. So that's basically how movement works. Not a big deal. The other thing is plant. So in order to plant, we have to we might be able to do this. I actually think you have to harvest first. So we'll just write plant entities.bush. That's what it tells you to do in this little code tutorial. And yeah, I guess you don't have to harvest. So it plants a bush, the bush will grow, and then I can harvest the bush, and look at that, I got a wood. And now it's going to harvest hay because we didn't plant another bush. So in order to get bushes to work and automated, it's a little more complicated than hay because you need to go ahead and plant after you harvest, right? Otherwise, you're just going to get hay after each plant, right? So the loop becomes a little more complex. We still need a while true because we want this to continuously run, right? The next step is going to be while true. If you can harvest, you're going to harvest. Okay, easy enough. And we're going to move through the farm too. I'm going to program that in just because it's not too difficult since it's only one wide. But if we can harvest, we're going to harvest. I'm not going to worry about an else condition here. We're not going to trigger the else ever, I don't believe. So if you can harvest, you're going to harvest. Then you're going to move. You're going to move north. Then yeah. So if you can harvest, you're going to harvest. Then you move north. I can track the X position, right? So we can put those at the end. Basically what I'm going to do here, if get position X, and really I care about Y, because Y is going to be the vertical. So 0, 1, 2, and X is going to be the left, right. So this is 0 on the X. We don't have a 1 or a 2 yet, but we will eventually. So we only care about get pause Y. This is going to get our Y position, meaning if get position Y, that's going to return a number. And I can actually no, I don't have operators unlocked. Darn. We need 30 wood before I can do this. So I can't fully automate the planting. So let's just do bushes on their own. If can harvest, you're going to harvest, and then you're going to plant an entity dot bush. Okay. Then what you're going to do after that is you're going to move, and it's not capitalized, it's just lowercase, and you're going to move north. And this is what it's going to do, and it's going to loop this. I can take advantage of the fact that once it gets to the second tile, it'll come back to the beginning. So if I just hit play, let's see what happens. It's going to scan, moving north, harvest, plant, then after they grow, it'll harvest and plant them again. So bushes obviously take quite a bit longer than hay does to grow. Once I have operators unlocked, I can actually build a loop that does both bushes and hay at the same time, and it won't be too difficult to set up, but I need operators first. That will allow me to use numbers as conditions, is basically what that will do. Really useful. If you aren't familiar with programming, being able to use actual numbers instead of just Boolean values, really useful. I mean, it kind of makes sense, right? But yeah. Anyway, so we've got the wood. We're going to stop our bush harvesting. Now we're just going to harvest. Oh, I don't have a move in here. So we will add a move north real quick. And we're just going to harvest up the hay that we need in order to get our operators. Then I'll build a program that does both our hay and our wood at the same time. I'd like to expand the farm as well, but I want to get operators before I do that. Just because automating the left and right movement is really difficult. It's really difficult to do, or you can't do it in a good way without operators. Debugging, I'm not too worried about. This is useful though, so we will unlock that eventually. I just want to focus on operators first. So this is kind of the strategy element of the game, or like the idle element. You gotta wait until your drone is able to harvest X amount of crops, and there is like a growth time and growth rate and yada yada. And depending on how efficient your program is, you might be able to, unlock stuff faster or slower. While we talk about operators and while we build our next thing, I want to go ahead and let this harvest some wood or some bushes to get us wood. That way we can then move on and unlock our expand. So I only need 3 more, so cool. Basically, operators are going to be plus, minus, multiply, divide, percent, double multiply, double divide. I believe this is for floor the number after division. Okay, cool. Whatever. Not a big deal. This explains what all of them do, right? So you can kind of see. Cool. Great. We also got comparison operators, so equal, equal, not equal, less than equal, greater than equal, less than, greater than. Compare values. Results either true or false. And then obviously with numbers, you can have numbers. Equal, equal could evaluate numbers or a true or false. Same with not equal. So just bear that in mind. We also got not, and, or as logical operators. This is used to combine truth values. So not is simply going to invert the value. So not false would evaluate to true. Not true would evaluate to false, right? That kind of makes sense. The logic operators are generally pretty easy. And is evaluates to true only if both values are true. So like if this and this, they both have to be true for that to be true, right? And it kind of breaks this down. Then or, as long as one of the conditions is true, it's true. If they're all false, it's false. Easy enough. Great. Let's expand our farm. Fantastic. Oh, we got a for loop for that? Great. We don't need a for loop to move, but that's good to know. We need to get carrots in order to get variables, which would be fantastic. So we'll save up the wood while we build out our, our program to utilize all of our farming space, because we just expanded and now we have some exposition. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to keep harvesting wood because I need it, and that's fine. I think as far as laying out the farm is concerned, we've got a 3x3. So I could do like half the farm is tree, half the farm is wheat. I could do something like that. So I'm going to do this as a one-off because once we get functions, we're not going to want to do this anymore. So hay and bush, we're going to basically define some stuff. So while true, it's going to be a loop because we want it to repeat. If you... actually, how do I want to do this? If get position X equals 0, that's going to do the first row, or first column, right? So this line will be X position X equals 0. This would be 1, this would be 2. I guess what I could do is use a modulo. How do I do that in this? Is it a percent modulo operator? Fantastic. Get X position percent 2. What this is doing is basically dividing this number by this number, and if there's no remainder, it evaluates to 0. If there is a remainder, it evaluates the remainder. So if get X position modulo 2 equals 0, this is going to check if we're in an even X. So 0 won't, 1 won't, 2 will. So we'll only be planting the last, but that's fine. Once we have more rows, it'll work itself out. Then what I wanted to do is if get position Y does not equal 3, you're going to move, well, this is where we actually plant our code. What this is checking is this is basically checking if we're not at the last tile, we're going to do this code. If you are at the last tile, we will do something else. So we will utilize elif. I'm going to have an elif get position, or well, I could do else in this instance because it's either going to be this or it won't be, and I only wanted to do it if it's this, so that's fine. Okay, if get position Y is not equal to 3, then we are going to, if can harvest, and we are going to plant entities.bush. Then we are going to, and this has to be, so important here. I have some nested ifs, right? The indentation goes in by 1 for each if. If can harvest, I need this move to be outside of that if statement because I want this move to trigger even if that if doesn't. You're going to move north. Okay. So there's that. That's this piece. Else, you're going to if can harvest, same condition, right? Oh, I forgot to put in the if. Then harvest. And this is checking the Y, so I guess that's fine. We'll plant bushes again. This is still just on even rows, so it doesn't matter. And then this will be when position Y is 3. So we actually need to move east and then move north. And then if get X position mod 2 is 0, does this. Otherwise, I want, basically I want the same thing, but we're just going to remove the plants. So I can copy this and paste it. And if I go all the way over here, should get the indentation right. Now I just need to remove the plant bushes because I want these to do hay. when it's not an even X, it should be planting hay, is what I want. And if I wanted to checkerboard it, it's just a little bit more complicated than this, but it's not much. And yeah, we'll show that off. I think we have to build a checkerboard as something at some point. Good enough. We've got... Oh, we can unlock carrots. That's cool. Great. We'll look at that in a minute. I just want to show you this program first because this is our first, like, oh, we've got multiple things. Kind of automate. Let's see if we can get both hay and wood going. And we can. So plant that row. It's not evaluating this. Yeah, I actually want this out of the loop. Leave the move east in the else and put the move north outside of the if and the else and put it inside of the mod 2. And I want to do the same thing here. So if I adjust these, it should work now. No, still getting stuck. Why? Let's just define this as an elif, just to specify that I want it to be get position y equals 3. It's never going to hit 3. That's why it's not working. Duh. This is 0 index, so it's not actually 3. It actually needs to be 2. So this can be an else. This just needs to be a 2 instead of a 3. My bad. Rookie mistake. Basically, these are 0 index. What that means is you start counting from 0 instead of at 1, so it's 0, 1, 2. So we only have 0, 1, 2, 0, 1, 2. There isn't a 3 yet. Okay, now it should work. Oh, I forgot the colon after the else. You'll probably get those errors all the time. I know I get them all the time. Well, not all the time. That's actually the first one today. But yeah, it happens. Syntax will get you. But basically, our drone is going to move through our farm, harvest stuff, and plant our trees. And it looks like, so 0 mod 2 is actually 0. I guess that makes sense. So the first row and the third row, if you're counting them like a normal person, or the 0th row and the second row, if you're counting them like a programmer, are trees. And then row 1 is hay. So I'd like to get variables. We need carrots. Carrot upgrades is wood. All this is going to take... So we need wood, we need some hay, but we mostly need carrots at this point, or a lot of hay. So what we could do, we have 3 crops, we have 3 rows. We could actually build a program to plant all 3 things. So let's look at carrots. I know we didn't look at it very long. You could have paused and looked at it, but that's fine. Carrots only grow on tilled soil. You call till to till soil while the drone's over it. Call it again to untill the soil. So right now we're just planting on turf, I believe is what they call this. You can till it and get soil, and everything can grow on soil, but only some things can grow on turf. So basically, it makes sense to just till all the soil blocks. You can actually plant grass on soil, so just so you're aware. You also unlock trade. You actually have to buy your carrot seeds, if you can imagine that. They don't just give them to you. We're not magic. We do have to buy things. So we trade items.carrot seed to get a carrot seed to then plant into a carrot, to then grow into a carrot. So easy enough, not a big deal. Let's go ahead and pause hay and bush. And we're going to adjust this name and call it HBC for hay, bush, carrot. And instead of doing mod 2, what I'm going to do instead is we're going to make this a 3 condition if statement. So if get x position equals 0, you're going to plant bushes. Instead of this being an else, it's now an elif. Get I need to move that so I can see the thing. Get x position equals 1. If you can harvest, then harvest. Else, if you can harvest, then harvest. So this is going to do hay. Then another elif, get position x equals 2. Then we do basically want to copy this, but we're going to add a few things because we're going to be planting carrots in x equals 2. So if get position, okay, so this is just for the move. That's easy enough. So if can harvest, you're going to harvest. Then there should be a get ground type. It's going to check the ground type. If this is equal to grounds dot turf, then you are going to till it so we get soil. After you till the soil, if our num items, another command that we have unlocked, we can look at the total number of things. If our items carrot seeds are less than 1, we're going to trade our items carrot seeds. So we're going to buy 1. Then after we've tilled the ground, after we bought our carrot seed, we then need to plant an entities.carrot. Easy enough, right? So basically, since I'm going to repeat this, instead of just doing a harvest, I need to add all of this before. Is it like that? In line with the harvest? Oh, no, I want this out of the... It shouldn't be in the same loop. That is my mistake. There we go. That's how I want it. Like this. Perfect. And this should plant carrots in the last row, hay in the first row, and trees in the first. Okay, let's go ahead and use the clear command. This is also sometimes a useful thing to call at the start of new stuff because it resets everything to hay. Clears everything, just resets. So this is like your reset your land command. It's very useful. Let's go ahead and see if we can get hay, bushes, and carrots. There's the bushes. There's the hay. Oh, look at that. Oh, whoops. I did the syntax wrong for that. It's actually like this. Same thing down there. There we go. Now it'll plant the carrot seeds. Now carrot seeds, to trade them, it does cost 1 wood and 1 hay. So since we're planting all 3 at the same time, the cost of the carrot seed is not going to get us. But if you were going to plant the whole field of carrots, just make sure you have some wood and some hay banked up. Otherwise, you'll eventually not be able to buy the carrot seeds, and you will get stuck. Alright, so we got 27 whole carrots, if you can believe it. We almost have the 200 wheat, so we can almost get variables. That's going to be fantastic. Ooh, and then functions. This is my fave. We're going to get functions unlocked. Maybe what we'll do... Well, we're at variables. I'm just looking at the video is kind of getting a little long. And we've kind of talked about quite a bit. Maybe what we'll do here, I think we'll call it for today. And then in the next episode, we're going to come back. We're going to get variables unlocked. We're going to get functions unlocked. And then we'll probably also expand the farm. Maybe we'll get watering. Maybe we'll get trees. We'll take a look at the next, handful of upgrades. Primarily, next episode is going to be focused on variables and functions. Those are the 2 programming concepts that we haven't touched on yet. Today's episode, we talked about loops. We talked about operators. We talked about kind of like calls for functions. We talked about how to build programs. We've got a program that plants hay, bushes, and carrots and slowly generates them over time for us. Pretty ugly, and that's because we're not able to use variables. We're not able to use functions. Once we can do both of those things, this really big window here will get quite a bit smaller. Like this here was the original zoom for the game. So if you think about that, this is basically the size of the original starting window, our code right now. And there's way more stuff that we want to add. Anyway, we'll get there and more in the episodes that are going to follow. So if you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe as always. If you subscribe, you can hit the bell. That way you get notified when the next episode comes out. Hint, hint. If you think that I could have programmed something better or in a different way, or if you did it a different way, or if you have any questions or concerns or anything else, please drop a comment. I do like getting that feedback. It really is helpful for me. I also like learning how to program things better if there is a way. Or if there's a different way. I also like learning new ways to do things. So please hit me up with a comment down below the video. Other than that, guys, we're going to call it here for today. So until next time, this has been LD7, and we will see ya.